Right now, you can cross an ocean in 12 hours. You strap into a metal tube, fall asleep, and wake up on an entirely different continent, barely giving it a second thought. 70,000 years ago, making even a fraction of that journey meant stepping into a void. There were no paved paths, no GPS satellites, and no rescue teams if something went wrong. A single misstep, a wrong turn, or a broken leg in unfamiliar territory meant certain death. For ancient humans, survival depended on specific biological engineering. Humans evolved with millions of sweat glands that prevent overheating during a long chase, and Achilles tendons that act as biological springs, recycling energy into every stride. You can see the physical proof of this bipedalism in these plaster casts of ancient footprints. This upright stride allowed a human to walk 20 miles, sleep, and wake up to do it all over again the next day. Small bands of early humans were often forced outward. A devastating drought, a shift in the migration patterns of the herds they hunted, or the arrival of a rival group meant that finding food required leaving the only home they knew. Global expansion happened out of relentless life-or-death necessity. Generation by generation, families outwalked the environments they could no longer survive in. Navigating across unknown landmasses required a high level of environmental literacy. Prehistoric travelers learned to read the landscape for clues. A river flowing in a certain direction, a flock of birds disappearing over a ridge, or the specific color of distant vegetation all served as directional signs. If we visualize how this information is processed, we can see how the human brain built a cognitive map. It synthesized isolated clues, like a hidden water source or a safe mountain pass, into an interlocking mental picture of the terrain. Because written language didn't exist, geographic data was stored entirely in human memory. Through oral traditions, songs, and stories shared around campfires, older generations taught survival routes to their children, ensuring the map grew more detailed with every generation. This accumulated knowledge allowed human populations to advance slowly. A family might expand their territory by a mere 20 kilometers over an entire lifetime. This inherited library of landmarks and songs functioned as an invisible map, allowing populations to cross continents without a single physical chart. As populations pushed north during the last ice age, massive glaciers and sub-zero temperatures created a physical wall that stretched across the horizon. When humans reached the Bering Land Bridge connecting Siberia to North America, ice sheets blocked their path south. Populations survived in this freezing wasteland for thousands of years, a massive pause in migration known as the Beringian standstill. When the ice finally began to melt and corridors opened, humans poured through. They spread across the Americas, moving from the northern tundra to the southern tip of Chile, at a speed rarely matched in human history. The Beringian bottleneck proved that ancient migration was a test of endurance. Populations had to adapt to a deep freeze for millennia before they could move into the rest of the hemisphere. Eventually, the land ended. Humans faced the open ocean, a barrier that stopped every other large land animal. Pushing past that shoreline required extreme psychological bravery. Families loaded their lives onto fragile rafts and paddled out of sight of land, knowing that a storm or a missed landfall meant disappearing into the dark water. This diagram illustrates how ancient navigators located land without instruments. They learned to feel the directional force of deep ocean swells, memorize the rotating sequence of stars, and track the daily migrations of seabirds. These observations allowed Polynesian navigators to cross thousands of miles of water with precision, finding small specks of land in the largest ocean on Earth. These techniques didn't make the ocean less dangerous, but they made it readable, turning an impenetrable barrier into a series of known routes between distant islands. Humans reached every climate on Earth long before the invention of the wheel or the sail. Once humans domesticated animals, the scale of travel changed. The horse multiplied human speed, turning a multi-day journey into a quick afternoon ride. The wheel was a surprisingly late addition to history. To use it for heavy cargo, empires had to permanently scar the landscape with stone-paved infrastructure to prevent carts from sinking into the mud. Horses, wheels, and roads made travel more efficient, But the drive to move across the planet already existed long before the tools that made it easier. This 300,000-year history of survival leaves a measurable trace inside you. Your DNA carries the unbroken lineage of these travelers. You do not descend from those who stayed behind. Your ancestry belongs to the risk-takers, the ones who stood at the edge of an empty horizon and kept walking. The modern urge to see what lies beyond the horizon is the result of an ancient, inherited lineage, one that walked across a planet one uncertain step at a time.